Okay. I want to talk about the sources of Italian law. And first of all, I want to talk about the terminology, because there's a lot of terminology. We can start with Fonti di produzione. What does that mean? That is where the law is produced in a process. It may be produced in Parliament or in the region or in Europe, but it goes through a process. These are sources of production of the law. So they're Fonti di produzione, where the law is produced. Then you've got two classifications, the fonti atto and the fonti fatto. The fonti atto, the sources of acts, are where the laws are done by an authority which is habilitated by the state. So it's in the constitution that that organ can make a law. It has the authority to make a law which can be applied. We can think of the Parliament, for example, but also maybe international law. And another source of le fonti atto, or a supranational body makes the law, le fonti atto, like the European Union. And then le fonti fatto come from the bottom instead, not from an authority, but from the bottom, because they're repeated behaviour over time, traditions that become law, become accepted as legitimate. And we can think of an example, for example, a village that always picks mushrooms in that field. After many years, they can't be stopped. They could be stopped by an authority writing a law, which would be the fonti atto. That can stop them, but they just by their repeated behaviour, they can't be stopped by other people because it becomes legitimate. And that is how originally laws were made. They just evolved in repeated behaviours. They weren't codified, they weren't written down by an authority. They emerged through practice and habits. And we call that common law. It's another word, English word for it is common law. So that's le fonti fatto. Now another term is le fonti di cognizione. This is where the law is written down. So we can go to the sources of law that are written down. This could be la Gazzetta Ufficiale della Repubblica, which is the official magazine for the laws. Any law which is made by Parliament must be written there before it can become law. And obviously this is important because the law needs to be dispersed, it needs to be communicated, transmitted to wherever. So maybe a headmaster in a school, if he wants to know about the law on the schools that's being done in Parliament, he can go there, he knows where to go and he can read it. Other sources of this, le fonti cognizione, would be codici unici. These, or I testi unici, these are the texts of an argument, of a complete argument put in a text which you can read. The I codici are all the books on a specific area of law. You've got the penal code, you've got the civil code, etc. There's different branches of law written down in books, and we call them I codici, and that's where you go to find out what the law says. So So those are le fonti di cognizione. And then you've got le fonti interne. This expression means all the laws made inside the Italian judicial system that emanate from the state, and the le fonti esterne, all the laws made outside the state, the international law, the European law, treaties, etc. So those are the different classifications. Now, how do we know which law to obey, to consider, to respect? If you've got different sources, obviously one source might say one thing and the other say the opposite. Maybe, I don't know, the Constitution says one thing and Parliament says the complete opposite. Which law do we respect? Because it has to be coherent. We can't have a judicial system full of contradictions, can we? Now, we put the law, the sources of law, in a hierarchy, we can see, where on the top you've got the constitutional law, so that is, it's always respected. If any other sources are in contradiction with that, then the Constitution is the one, the source to consider as prevailing. The other laws, Parliament, if it makes a law against the Constitution, that law would be abrogated by the Constitutional Court. It's got a special court to see that it's respected. And that's on top. And then you've got the European law under that, even though the Constitutional Court has said that if a judge has a law made by Parliament, the Italian Parliament, and a law made by the European Union, it must disregard the law made by the Italian Parliament because the European Union always prevails. So that's said by the Constitutional Court, and that's also indicated in the Constitution that the European Union law will be respected in Article 10. It insinuates this. And then the next level, you've got the Parliament that makes laws. Again, they can't make laws in contradiction to European Union or the Constitution. And then you've got the regions. These, again, can't make laws in contradiction to the Parliament. And then you've got the common law, the consuetudine, the laws through tradition and through habit, which is the least superior in the hierarchy. So any other authority has the least authority, so any other authority can change that. But there's other ways of deciding what law to respect when they're in contrast. For example, in the region, and if the region makes a law and it contradicts the Parliament, there could be the region in the right. You know, it could be that the region's right because in the Constitution there's written different competencies for the region and different ones for the Parliament. So the region can make laws on schools, on, for example, an airport. If there's an airport, it can make laws. Only the region can make laws on that. Whereas the Parliament has the right to make laws on other competencies like immigration, like penal law, other things like that. And they have shared competencies as well. For example, schools, where the region and the school and the state can make laws on schools, but obviously the Parliament, if it makes a law on the school and it's in contrast with the region, the parliamentary law prevails. So that's not in the shared competencies, the hierarchy comes into play. And then there's the principle of time. So if Parliament makes a law and the old law is in contradiction, the old law is automatically abrogated, because always the most recent laws are the ones to respect and abrogate any other laws that go before it. So there's these principles, because in a system, in a judicial system, there can only be one prevailing law to respect. You cannot have two legitimate laws that are, or two sources even, that are in contradiction.